and I am excited about the conversation. Take a moment now to like, share, and comment. Get this video out to those on your wall that are going to be engaging our conversation with us. We want to talk with you, not just at you. So go ahead and share this conversation now. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. And I'm going to bring up our special guest tonight, in the person of Overseer Derick B. Wilson. So look, will you all welcome to our virtual platform, Overseer Derick Wilson. Hey, Overseer, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I am doing good. I'm doing good. I need to get my drink. There it is. We got our drinks tonight. I ain't gonna tell y'all what I'm drinking just yet. Good to see you. Will you? So we both have competing. Okay, Mountain Dew of the Mountain. But so we both have our competing dogs in the background, and I got a smoke detector that just decided it wanted to go off too. So y'all bear with me tonight, but we are excited about the conversation. Thank you, Overseer, for being with me tonight. I want you to introduce us, give us your opening remarks, or just give us an idea of where you're coming from and what brings you to this conversation tonight.
I'm excited to be here tonight to be a part of the conversation. I think that for so many of us, sex and sexuality are things that we were just told when we were raised in church that we shouldn't talk about it. That we should just accept whatever the dogma is and just not talk about it. We didn't talk about it, but we did a whole lot of it. And as a result, there was just a whole lot of bad information, a whole lot of bad sexual health things that took place. There was a whole lot of shame and stigma that took place. And I think that as we grow and as we evolve, we got to be able to grow in how we talk about sex and sexuality as it relates to the church and the Bible. So I'm just excited to be here to be a part of the conversation with you. If we talk about sex and sexuality, things may be said. and
Absolutely.
words may be used.
Absolutely.
So let's just wrap ourselves in and
yes. Yes, I tell the community. I said, clutch your religious pearls. Go ahead and get them. You might want to just take them off because you might end up breaking them by the end of the night. And that's what I love about these conversations is that each one is different. It's different when I have the conversation one on one with our audience. Last week's conversation with Elder Edgar Gaines was a phenomenal conversation. Mm-hmm. But it was its own conversation. So I'm excited now to have you with us tonight to have this conversation. There's so much in this conversation to explore, and we have so much of it because the conversation hasn't been had in this manner. I'm not gonna say we haven't been talking about it, but like you said, my exposure to it was basically wait till you're married, and then I'm like, wait till you do what? But society or life did not wait until I was married to expose me, to sexuality. My body didn't wait until I was married. Everybody got the memo to wait till I was married except for me. So I'm like, what do we do with this beast of a part of ourselves? And it becomes a beast because we don't confront it. One of my other mantras is you will remain bound by what you don't confront.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what brings you to the conversation, and what, in your perspective, is the faith community's responsibility in embracing the sexual among us? That's our theme question tonight.
So, first of all, I think I want to begin with where you just ended, and that is that whole belief and teaching of the church that you should wait until you're married. Now, wait until you married made sense when people were getting married at 14. And that's when people were saying, wait until you're married. Well, of course you wait until you're married when you're 14. You don't want an 11-year-old having sex. So wait until you're married made sense. My great grandmother was literally 14 when she got married. And and so that was, people weren't living that long. People were living until 35, 40. If you lived to 50, you were considered ancient back then. But so wait until you're married made sense back then. But now you have people who, first of all, I think there should be a federal law that nobody should be allowed to get married before the age of 25. Because you got to get to know yourself. You got to get to know who you are, what you have to bring to the table. We're in a very different place and space. And so at the end of the day, people are getting married now 25, 30, 35. And so how are you going to tell a 35-year-old wait until you get married when she ain't married yet? Does that mean she's supposed to just sit there and then on top of that, we want to throw in wait until you're married, and by the way, you can't masturbate because masturbation is a sin too. So she's supposed to wait till she's 35 before she or somebody else touches herself. At that point, she don't even know what she's touching. So at the end of the day, the church is just so bogged into ways of thinking that are rooted in who we were, because we're too afraid to consider who we are now as people. And so as a result, we are saddled with all of this baggage. And when you ask people to explain, well, why should I wait till I get that? Well, you're just supposed to. You just have to accept it just because we said so. Right. It reminds me of the way we train doctors. Now, doctors in the residency stages, it's a horrible process. They're up all night. They work these horrible shifts. They know that it makes no sense, but they don't change it. Why? Because if I had to go through that, then you got to go through that too. And so it's the same thing in the church. If I had to wait till I get married, you got to wait till you get married too. And on top of that, the other question is, when 50% of marriages are ending in divorce, and that's in the church, and might be a little higher in the church, actually. Wait until you get married causes a problem because people are clearly marrying the wrong people. And so I waited till I got married just so I could lay down with this dude that ain't my dude for real. Cause he got about it. Come on. And what about the fact that the church also, in terms of those who are LGBT, say you just can't even have sex, period.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm with you on that. And for me, you mentioned earlier how we don't have something to the effect of we don't have the courage to be honest. And I have not a different perspective, but let me say this. We live in a society now where it's obvious that no one is waiting till marriage. Like even in the church, we have the principle on the book. We teach it in Bible study. They preach about it behind the pulpit. But there is like this unsaid, underwritten understanding that we all doing it anyway. So explain that. Like we preach one thing literally and really do live different than what we preach.
The sad part is that isn't even new. Because people screwing has been happening in church for a long time. It's what we do very well. We all know who was screwing. We all know who was sleeping with who. We all know which deacon was sleeping, which married deacon was sleeping with the missionary.
Yes.
We knew this.
We knew.
We can even take it to, there was a television show, The Preachers of LA. And one of the superstars of the conservative church movement, who is single, Bishop Noel Jones, was dating someone that it was quite clear that they were not having a chaste relationship.
Right.
And nobody said nothing.
And then they say nothing.
As long as you didn't say it overtly. Because that's the thing in the church. You can do whatever you want to do in the church as long as you're not overt about it. As long as you don't fess up to what you're doing, you can do whatever you want to. You could walk into the Church of God in Christ convocation in drag as long as you said that you were a man. That's it. We care about the law. Give me the fix.
All right.
Give me the fix. That's all I care about is the fiction.
Yes.
But we serve a God who's a God of truth.
Right.
But you're acceptable in the church as long as you produce the fiction. So sex is happening all over the place. Saints are getting it in.
Yes.
Preachers' kids in particular are getting it in.
Oh God.
And they learn that from somebody. Consequently, it's time for us to stop playing these kind of weird games of don't ask, don't tell. Even the military figured out the don't ask, don't tell doesn't work.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So that's very interesting. So we have scandals. We have preachers who, because not all preachers. Let's just talk about preachers, and then we'll move beyond. Joseph talking about don't come for us PKs, but there is this. Let's talk about this dichotomy of, because I live in the social media generation, so it could be obvious that my friends, preachers or not, but traditional church going people, they clubbing, they're drinking, they're laid up with their same gender loving partner. These things are obvious, on social media. And then it's almost like Sunday, we walk into this virtual closet when we get to church. And now it's taboo, or in my case, you get inboxes and phone calls of people saying, talk about something else, or why do you still use the Bible to, or all of these things. Like, I'm supposed to disassociate and divorce myself from my spirituality because I decide to live my life as and I'm going to use these words very intentionally, openly gay. Pastor, they will share and tweet and attend and support the pastors that's got 2 and 3 boy toys and a wife, and they know something in the milk ain't clean, but because he's still preaching the word, I'm gonna follow him, or her, or them, and then all of a sudden, the one that's just telling you a little bit more than what you're comfortable knowing, they're deemed to hell somehow.
Well, and the problem is that the people who will be the fastest to send you to hell will be the people doing the exact same thing you're doing.
Yes.
And that's the sad part.
Yes.
One of my closest friends in ministry and in life was a pastor, Apostle Anthony Williams. And Anthony was clearly, like, if you saw him 3 blocks away, you knew he was dead. No ifs, ands, or buts. He was so pretty. Had always had hair down, and he was shouting with his hair. Could preach the house down. Had a following, travel, preach, was clearly dead. But it was a great preacher. But he was always booked. He dated this dude who decided to out him because they had a bad breakup and put some pictures of the 2 of them out on social media. And the same church people who knew that he was gay then suddenly said, oh, we can't fellowship with you anymore because you gay. I'm like, bitch, you knew he was gay. What do you mean?
Everybody knew. Right. And everybody knew. So what changed between the knowing and then all of a sudden now we gotta take action? What changed?
Honesty. and that's it. The truth came out. The truth was there was a photograph of him just hugged up on vacation with his boo. That picture got posted, and all of a sudden his church dried up. And he died. He literally died because he just didn't feel like living anymore. Because his life was over. All he knew was church.
Right.
All he knew was church. It's how he made his living. It's how he paid his bills. He never worked a job. He was preaching since he was a child. So all he knew was church. And all because of him hugged up to somebody. Suddenly now, what everybody already understood was like, oh, well, now we can't fellowship with you anymore because we're saved and sanctified, and this is just the devil. No, you're a liar. You an effing liar. You knew what he was before that. And that's something twisted is happening in the church world today. That as long as you live with a lie, we will accept you.
Yes.
While we preach the God of truth.
Yes. And let me just tell you just how true that is. I will never forget. I will never forget. And I'm still excited to have you. That's why I'm smiling. But this story is nothing to really laugh at. But I remember having Bible study one night. I was teaching from the Bishop Pearson's Gospel of Inclusion. And I was making a statement about how Bishop Pearson got a revelation from God, and began to preach it to his people, and they inadvertently turned on him and walked away from him. And I was just talking about how that was portrayed in the movie Come Sunday. We actually watched it as a group and then talked about it. So I made a statement. I was like, would you all rather me, and I'm talking about me, myself, as your pastor, go marry a woman, that may or may not know my true sexuality, and live my life as this openly this straight pastor and preach once a month about how gays are going to hell. And if that would grow our church, would you think do you think I should go and do that? And I had one member who was like, absolutely. Whatever you need to do to get the people is what you ought to do. And I'm like, but that would be me living a whole lie. Like, I got delivered from that. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
So what do I do? What do I do now? Would you rather have a leader that has all of the accoutrements, or one that's just honest with what he has, what he does has? And I learned that they don't like that. They don't like we don't like a single pastor, period.
In the gay or the straight church.
Period. My point.
Because the problem, and you and I have talked about this before, the problem, particularly for those who are in affirming ministries, they're in an affirming ministry, they're in a gay ministry, but they have the same heterosexist value system. And they bring it right on over.
Come on.
The same bullshit.
Yes.
That does not work in the mainstream church.
Yes.
And we pull over to the gay church. So now all of a sudden, we have a gay church which is liberated. We have to have a first gentleman who gets, and everybody has to stand when the first gentleman comes in. Why? Because when the first lady comes in, everybody stands for the first lady. So we basically just pick the same heterosexist value system and just translate it over into gay case.
Yes.
And we have, as a result, the same abuses, the same putting people up on pedestals that has led to rampant abuses. So many young boys and girls have been abused because we pedestalize pastors and preachers, and then we do it in the gay church, so that now there are some gay churches where the pastor walks in and we go every time the pastor stands up, we got to stand up and applaud him every single time. If he moves, if he pats his head, we got to stand up and applaud him because we've set up the same heterosexist value structures of deification in the gay church is in straight churches. So there's a problem there. And so, you do get demonized as a single pastor because truthfully, it's the same thing. I'm sure you're dating. And when you're dating, I date, the first thing that I get asked normally is, you're attractive, you're intelligent, you got money, you got a good job, and you're single. What's wrong with you?
What's wrong? Yeah, that what's wrong question.
And I'm like, there ain't nothing wrong with me.
Not a thing.
Not a thing wrong with me.
But so that's good. So let's move deeper from the pulpit, because I really do believe that things start at the pulpit, which is why I'm having this conversation with preachers. This really is a human sexuality conversation. but you got to start from your community and work your way out. And I know that there are a lot of young black gay men who love God but don't know what to do with their sexuality, and living in a world where even when I was coming up, no one would tell you were wrong for giving your life to God, right? So we began to sing and we began to play and use our gifts and our talents and our love for music, in the Lord's church, and our families. As long as we was singing in the choir and ushering on the junior usher board, and as long as we were, doing all the right things, no one would stop us from moving forward until, as long as we, of course, assimilated to what the culture, if you will, was. Well, so let's talk about the pew. We have a community of people. Well, let me just start with myself. Let me just start with me. First off, I realized, and the Lord began to deal with me a few months ago, saying, stop playing or performing for the audience that has already rejected you. Meanwhile, leave on mute or leave without your witness those who really need, your story, your testimony, your very being. And I was like, Lord, what do you mean? And God brought to me, started getting phone calls and messages from people in my sex community. Okay, because first off, let's just, like you said, pastors, especially us single ones, and us 30-year-olds, 30-something, 40-something-year-olds, our sexuality works. Our sexual ethic. Our stuff works. I'm healthy, So I'm thinking like, okay, why am I keep getting these like spiritual tugs from what's supposed to be a hookup? Like, we're supposed to be hooking up, and then we get to hooking up, and halfway through, foreplay, I'm starting to spiritually get downloads with the trauma issues that you ain't healed from, and now I'm turned off because I don't know what to do with this discernment that can't be turned off, And rather than just go forward with the mood, I gotta come up with some excuse to get up and go, and then I'm in the car crying like, Lord, why can't I just have a regular life? Why can't I just be normal? Everybody else is out here doing it. Everybody else is out here getting it. So what does the church do with the young people who love God, but they got OnlyFans, they got free accounts, and they don't do all the church stuff, but they love God, and they really, and I'm not talking about those that are traumatized and are running to sex to cope, or doing all kinds of things because they're traumatized. I ain't talking about those people, because we do have to address those people. But I'm talking about those who are just, they know who they are, they know what they want, they know what they like, and they enjoy, enjoying their sexuality. What does the faith community owe to those people, and what do we do so that they can develop? And I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna let you answer the question. But I feel like my sexuality would have developed in a more healthy way. I still think I would be gay. I mean, I'm gay. There ain't nothing made me gay, But me, I'm gay. But I think I made some bad sexual decisions, in my development, because church was not a place, or my home wasn't a place where I could go to my parents / my pastor and talk about my sexuality, my sexual urges, my desires, my curiosities, without having to just kind of sneak out the house and go figure them out, by trial and error. What does the faith community, today's faith community, owe to people that grew up like that?
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, as I think up until very recently, I was the director of sexual health promotion for Fulton County, Georgia. Meaning I was responsible for basically talking about sex on a regular basis, and talking about healthy sex on a regular basis, and talking about some of the things that can happen when people don't take and make healthy decisions about their engagement in sex. So it's something I know a little bit about. And I don't think that what you're describing is exclusive to lesbian and gay persons in church. It happens to straight people in church as well, young people in straight young people in church as well, because we just don't talk about it. The same deaconess that got pregnant at 17 will be the one that'll be quickest to say, we got to sit that girl down because she got pregnant. Same deaconess. And she got 5 kids by 6 different men because she ain't quite sure who the daddy of one of them kids are. So she just told them both, you the daddy. And that same deaconess, though, is going to condemn the young girl. That same preacher who grew up and they literally beat him into marrying a woman will now come, and he understands what it means to have his sexuality squashed and stepped on, will now come to you as a young gay person just trying to figure out who you are. Beyond all this church stuff. I mean, because that's the thing we got to understand, that growing up is about discovering who you are. So beyond all of this church and God and what does God have to say, I'm just trying to figure out who I got. These urges now that I don't know what to do with. I'm taking hour-long showers because I got urges now and I don't know what to do with these things. And so now here we are trying to young people are trying to evolve and then to grow. And then we throw on top of all of the questions of who we are, the questions of what does God have to say about me? All that you get told is you're just wicked and you're going to hell. You're just wicked and you're going to hell. And so many times people do end up with their sense of sex and sexuality being perverted. And I use that not in a pejorative sense, but I use that in the sense of it's twisted from what it could have been.
Yes.
To have developed in a healthy way. That's what it means to be perverted, for something to be twisted away from its healthiest expression of self, right? Yes. So it's not so people aren't perverted, but sometimes their expressions of sexuality are now perverted because they weren't allowed to grow in a healthy way in terms of their sex and sexuality. And so, the interesting thing about, the scenario you described of being in the midst of foreplays and all of a sudden you start picking up on things. Let's also be real. While I'm not a big proponent of this whole sex, you transfer spirits during sex thing. I think that's just some BS that Juanita Bynum came up with to cover up her issues. But God knows she's got more issues than a little bit. And so she came up with this theology of now my spirit is not connected with your spirit and blah, 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 blah. Ain't no Bible for that. Ain't even no good sense or psychology for that. But I do believe that when you're having good sex, the essence of good sex is vulnerability. Yes. Mm-hmm. And whenever somebody is vulnerable, if you're spiritually aware, especially if you have a prophetic gift of any kind, it kicks in automatically the moment, because vulnerability, all your stuff. I mean, truthfully, you don't even have to be super deep and spiritual. Face starts to show things. Yes. When you're vulnerable. Your body starts to respond in certain ways when you're vulnerable. And if you're someone who understands what all of this means, yeah, you're going to pick up on stuff. You're going to pick up on the fact that maybe this person isn't here because they're horny. They're here because they're lonely. Maybe this person isn't here because they just needed to get some. Maybe they're here because of the fact that they have no place to live and they just needed someplace. Maybe maybe you'll pick up on the fact that this person isn't here because of the fact that you're so hot. As much as we want to think that they're here because we're hot, they're here because they're so insecure. And they need you to affirm who they are. And so in that moment of vulnerability, you will pick up on some things. And at times you'll be like, dear God, why? And that's the real gift. The real gift is being able to understand people's vulnerability.
Yes, and we're gonna go right there. This is gonna get. Now I didn't know we was gonna go here tonight, so we go. Let's go. You ready? You ready?
I've already played twice, so go ahead.
So that is absolutely correct. I'm gonna be very transparent. I had an experience like that where, and this is what I mean by the if I could have brought these type of things to my pastor or a spiritual leader and not been judged about the fact that it was sexual, and then the whole conversation is shut down, I felt like I would have been able to take better care of not just myself, but the people that I would encounter in those moments. So this is the reason why I say this. Young man and I were gonna link up. We got apps. We hit each other up. We gonna match and chill and do what we do. And we got into the pre-game. You know how it is. You have conversation. You're smoking. You're drinking. You're doing your thing. Kind of feeling each other out and all of that kind of stuff. And halfway through, I began to understand this guy is very lonely. He really needs to be affirmed. He needs, he really needs something to make him feel good, because life just has this way of just. And I began to feel him. I mean, really feel him. And I said something to him that I never thought I would repeat outside of that room. I told him, I said, "You got the right one tonight." And of course, that's almost a catchphrase, in our culture. So he was like, "Okay, you gonna put it down?" But I was like, "No, I mean, well, yes, but what I'm really saying is, I'm gonna put it down, but I'm gonna put it down with the understanding that what you really need is not what I'm gonna give you sexually, but you really need to be held and affirmed and made safe." So this is where your religious pearls gonna get clutched, and this is where, again, I never thought I would say this, but that night I was sexual with that guy who thought he just wanted some dick, but I was able to hold him at a point of the experience, and I whispered in his ear and said, "You good, like you're worth it. You ain't got to." You know what I'm saying? So, whereas he could have gotten up with somebody else that would have smashed him and passed him, he actually came into contact with somebody who understood the true motivation. And rather than getting in my car, and swinging oil and Ikana Mashata, come out, devil, I was able to minister to him. See, my own religious pearls is just I was able to minister to him in a way where I was able, and when I say minister, I mean serve. I mean take care of. Give him what he really needed. Woman at the well. You might be thinking you're here for one thing, but let me give you something that you didn't, that you really need, but were afraid to ask for.
The only pushback I'm going to give to that, though, is that penis is not therapy.
No.
It is not.
No. Now, there was a responsibility that I had. You know what I'm saying? Let me clean this up.
It's just not.
Let me clean it up. Now, I had a responsibility to tell him, look, you need a therapist. You need to talk to somebody. You need counseling or something. I mean, that was a part too. But
truthfully, half these folks don't need sex. They don't need relationships. They need a therapist.
Yes,
that's just the reality. And I'm going to throw myself in there at many times in my life as well. Because as I often say when I get up to preach, that I am clothed. I'm thankful to God that I'm clothed and in my right mind. Why? Because I've been naked and crazy my life
for too long.
And I'm tired of being naked and crazy. And I'm grateful for being clothed and in my right mind.
Thank you.
All y'all illiterate Bible people, it's not closed.
Right. Come on.
The text says he was clothed and in his right mind.
Thank you.
And so at the end of the day, a lot of us, we don't need a nut. We need therapy. We need to talk to somebody. We need to reconcile ourselves, not with our past, not with our parents, not with our pastors, but with ourselves. Because if I can reconcile me with me, it will certainly help me make healthier decisions about who I decide and why I decide to lay down with someone. Because I will give it to you that 90% of the sex that a lot of people have is not because of horniness. It's just not. I know a whole lot about biological systems. And while we are not like certain animals that only, get horny once or twice a year for procreation purposes, somebody who says I'm horny every day, oh my God, I wake up and I'm horny. I gotta masturbate and jerk off, 5 times in a day, baby. No, you're not.
You suppressed. You're suppressed.
That's what you're choosing to sublimate. You're sublimating your activities and saying, I'm just going to call it horniness because it's easier to get a nut than it is to deal with the fact that I don't like myself.
That's it. Come on. Woo! That's it.
It's easier. We
gotta let that one sit. We gotta let that one sit. Because just like any other sorry, these dogs. Just like any other drug, any other quick fix, the feeling is intense, but then gone before you know it. And when the moment is over, you still got to deal with the stuff that you was dealing with before, and that's why I said it earlier, like for the last year, I've been going to therapy. I went live the other morning and I was just talking about how my healing process has been taken on, because I know for myself, Abo Shaddai, like you said, having sex sometimes and I'm sitting there legs up or whatever. Like, why am I here? I don't even like you. Also, and then I got to a place in my life where I had to say, this is not you. This is too much. You are sitting here trying to figure out within yourself why you're here. So why are you here? Like, I had to really do some things, and I had to, take myself to a therapist, because I had to talk through those things, and I began to be able to identify within myself what was really going on. Like you said, when I would normally just attribute the feeling to, oh, I'm horny. Ain't nobody that horny. There's something else going on, even if it's nothing but just, I'm lonely today.
Or I need, this is how I get attention. This is how I feel good about myself. Because I had to learn healthy ways to feel good about myself. And so I feel good about myself by having people want me. And so I get on social media and I create thirst traps. And I look at all my comments and I read them. And I entertain all these DMs and this whole DM lifestyle. You don't need to be on Jackson Grinder. Just get on Instagram and Jackson. You can get on Instagram or Facebook and hook up. And people in my DMs. And so now I feel good about myself. And again, I'm a such positive individual. I'm saved, sanctified, and feel. But I'm sex positive as well.
Yes.
And the reality is that sex was created as a gift from God to receive and share pleasure, particularly with someone that we have emotional attachment with. Now, it just so works out that it also works pretty good for those who ain't got no attachment at all. However, most of the times when we're just hooking up with people, just because 90% of the time, it ain't because we're horny. It's because there's something else going on with us. Now, mind you, I also do believe that if you have a broken leg, you need to use a crutch while you're healing.
In rehab,
and while you're rehabbing. And so there may be times that people practice behaviors, because I just need to get over this little hump right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to get over the hump right now. And I'll get to my therapist and I'll deal with it.
I'm going Tuesday, like, but this is Saturday night, you know.
Right, it's Saturday.
What did you do? Right.
And I could either sit here and allow my enemy to be my enemy.
Come on, come on.
Or I could do something to help me get over.
Yes.
And I don't begrudge anybody of that. The only time that's a real problem is when that's the only thing you do.
Right.
You know, if you've had a stressful day and you decide to go, I need a glass of wine just to unwind. I got a problem with that. But when you need a glass of wine and several glasses of wine every night to cope, now we got a problem.
Correct.
And that's the same with sex and sexuality.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because like eating, sexuality, as we shift to the next area of conversation, sexuality is a need. It's a physiological need. Like
touch is a need.
Yes, yes. And it's not like some of the other things that we stop doing. You have to know how to do it within moderation so that it's not the driving force in your well-being, or it's not more. You got to give adequate attention to all areas of wellness. And when one area fuels your existence anymore, just like it's food, and we see obesity that's linked to food insecurities or food or insecurities that we cope using food, we see it on you. But some of us are physically fit, and whereas food is not our coping mechanism, sex is. And
you know what I found to me? And this will probably get me more hate mail than anything I said tonight.
We good on that.
What I found to be true, that the essence of holiness is balance. It's not being super saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost and tapping on the 2 and the 4.
Yes.
Speaking in tongues all the time.
Talk well.
If that's all you do, you're out of balance.
Talk well.
And you're unhealthy.
Talk well.
Everything that prospers in God's creation is in
balance.
And when there's imbalance, it's considered dis-ease.
Yes.
And so our sex has to be balanced.
Yes.
It's not about being, I'm just going, why do you think, and I'm not casting no aspersions, but the Catholic Church has lost a whole lot of money because they want the priests to live an imbalanced life. And the reality is that if you want to be healthy with food, if you want to be healthy with sex, if you want to be healthy with anything in your life, it's about finding the balance points. And that's the essence of what it means to live holy.
Yes, that's so good.
If I could take Eastern mysticism, that's the concept of the yin and the yang. That when there is balance, there is wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And where there is imbalance, because some of these people in church who I love, but they are so imbalanced and so unhealthy.
Yes, and we who have done the work or are doing the work, or let me just tell myself, I get to a point where I can sit in church and it's not so much discernment as it is experience saying you're suppressed, you're horny, you really need to go somewhere. You need to go jack off really, because and it's a performance. It's almost like in Animal Species on the National Geographic, how they show you their mating dances and their mating calls. Church has become one of those things we do to show ourselves, to show off, to make ourselves presentable before the selection pool. You know.
So let me be transparent for a second, because I know for me as a preacher, and I used to feel so much guilt and shame about this. But the times that I have felt horniest in my life was after I preached the house down. And I would
They ain't gonna tell the truth tonight, Overseer.
I'd be like, wait a minute. I just preached, folk got saved. I saw signs, wonders, and miracles. People's lives. And I'm not talking about fake, just taking a sign and picking it and jerking. I'm talking about people who, after church, came up to me and said, can you meet me tomorrow and drive me to rehab? Because I need to get rid of this. I was in the zone. It was me and God. We were here. And then within 20 minutes of that being over, I'm like, oh my God, I need to get laid. Oh my God, I need to get some right now. I feel so ashamed of that. And then I talked to some others. And they had a same, like they were saying, one pastor who was married to a woman. He said, my wife loves me, I preach well, because she knows she's going to get some and get something good. So he's like, if you ever see my wife in service, she's always going, preach, baby.
Preach, baby.
He's always pushing me, because she knows that when it's all over, it's going to be all over.
That come down is going to be amazing. Yes, Lord.
But it's balanced. You swung so hard on the spiritual side.
That's good.
That there's a need in your body to swing back in the other way. It's a need.
Let's pause because this is a moment for me.
Yeah.
Let's stop feeling bad about the fact that after a consummate worship experience, there is a desire in ourselves to be sexual. Especially if sexuality and spirituality are related. Mm-hmm. Especially if they are the same, are different sides of the same coin, or whatever analogy works for you. If there is a correlation between our sexuality and our spirituality, then why are we feeling bad about the fact? Like you said, balance. I came to church. I was focused. I was in the zone. If you're preachers, I prophesied accurately. I preached what I heard the Lord say. I sang the song the Lord laid on my heart. I ushered. I did whatever it was I was supposed to do.
It was all Jesus.
I gave it all to Jesus.
It was all spirit. And now it's all flesh. And then the problem is for someone like yourself or myself, that when that swing comes back, because my friend I told you about, his wife got it good after service. But what about us single preachers?
Come on.
Because now we come home and we still have that same
everything,
but there ain't nobody there. And now what do we do with that? And a lot of times it turns into depression because we feel like I got their lives together, but I ain't got nobody. I ain't even got nobody just run up against me.
Come on.
And so the whole dynamic that causes, and that then fuels other unhealthy behaviors, because now it's like, let me just find somebody quickly. But then we feel bad about that, because as spiritual people, we don't ever want to feel like we use somebody.
Come on.
Because we're spiritual, and we don't want to feel like we treated somebody less than what God created them to be, which is a human being with a soul. And so to treat somebody like a piece when you're spiritual, we'll do it, but we don't feel good about it.
We don't like it. We do not like it. Come on. And this is another moment. If the community knew how much care we leaders have to have for ourselves and them, like, here I go again, being transparent. And this ain't nothing new for me on this platform in this conversation. People wish I would stop. But the point I'm making is, you don't want me to take out my frustrations. Let me put it this way. Sexually speaking, I know who not to call based upon my mood. I also know exactly who to call for a particular mood that I'm in, if that makes sense.
You want to know who helped me with this? And it's going to shock your mind. Bishop Kenny Moles.
Okay.
With this.
Okay.
Because Bishop Kenny Moles, he was preaching in Philadelphia for Bishop Robert Taylor. And he was talking about how he said, I have to tell certain people that when I'm done preaching, they can't carry me back to the hotel. Ain't got nothing to do with them. He said, it's me. And I'm going to be real about it. He said, if you know Bishop Moles, he was very expressive. Yeah. And he went, I have to let certain people know, you can't drive my car. You can't drive me back to the hotel. I'm sorry. I'll get back there on my own if I have to. Because after I'm done with this, it's just me. And I can't have you when I'm just being me.
Being me. Come on. Woo. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful balance. That's a beautiful balance to have, and if we could just get beyond the false conviction, the feelings that God is convicting us because we have these natural urges that are just as beautiful as the worship experience we had, and we don't feel bad about that. Mm-hmm. I think that's just a moment to really sit in. Because yes, we need to, and we want our pastors. The Bible talks about a little bit about how you want your pastor to be able to do his job, to do their job without stress and without anxiety. And we take that to mean don't give your pastor up, don't be hard on your pastor, don't give your pastor a hard time. But that also means allow your pastor to be a human, allow your leader to enjoy what they enjoy that doesn't have anything to do with you or their leadership role in your life.
I'm going to do you one better than that. It's not allow your pastor to be human. It's insist on your pastor to be human. Pastor, I insist that you be as human as I am.
Good God.
I insist that you make some mistakes that need forgiveness over, just like I make mistakes. I insist you be honest with that. It's not about allowing the pastors to be human. It's about saying, no, baby, if I love you, I insist that you be human. Because the only way you're going to make it, the only way you're going to survive and be able to be there for me when I really need you, is if I insist that you be human in all ways, shapes, and forms.
Everything. Yes. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It sounds to me like we should also have a conversation, not just about, because it seems like this conversation is more about the sexual within us.
Yeah.
As opposed to the sexual among us. Because
it's what's within us that causes us to be, that we interact with among us.
Yes. So we need to talk about within. We need to talk about what is it within you that you are afraid of encountering, embracing, facing by, because, we all have those drawers. My grandma called it a junk drawer, where anything that you couldn't figure out where you wanted to put, you just throw it over in that drawer. And for many of us, our sexual... That's it. It's, wherever it is. And I think our sexuality, especially for those of us who are religious or churchgoers or whatever the case may be, our sexuality is somewhere in that junk drawer.
Yeah.
That's my personal drawer. I go in there. Don't go in there. It looks fine from the outside. It's right up there with the Bible. It's right up there with the anointing oil. But there's some other oil that I don't put on the top of the desk. I put it in that drawer. Yeah. And God doesn't help us.
It's silicone-based oil.
Yeah, come on, that oil. Yeah. And God don't help us. With that area of our life because we hide it from God.
Yeah.
We hide it from God, which if you ask me, the big sin in Genesis was not Adam and Eve biting their fruit. For me, it's more so of what they did afterwards. God never asked them, what did you do? Not one time did God ask, what did you do? The first question was, where are you?
Yeah.
After they ate of the fruit, God still showed up to spend time with them. Right. But because now they realized they were naked and now they were shamed, they hid. Yeah. What is this about hiding what God created from God?
But if you want to, I know we're almost out of time, but if you want to unpack that verse for a quick second, the reality is they saw that they were naked and they covered themselves.
Yes.
In other words, they saw each other's vulnerabilities and they were ashamed of being vulnerable in front of each other.
Yes.
And they wanted to cover their vulnerabilities from each other and from God.
And from God. Yes.
But the problem is, you can't love someone and not be vulnerable to you. And on top of that, if we believe God is all that we say God is, no matter how much we try to cover our stuff, He sees us. I got this cute little Versace, shirt on right now, but God sees all my parts.
Yes.
Through it all, and that's the issue that all of us have.
Yes.
Is how do we allow ourselves to be vulnerable? But for so many of us in church in particular, we tried being vulnerable in church, and we were told we're going to hell. And so now we stop being vulnerable because the place where we should be able to be vulnerable told us, if you come in here with that mess, we throwing you right on out of here.
Absolutely. Yes. And whereas reconciliation is the process by which things are balanced, by alienating our sexuality from our spirituality, we went wild. Some of us went wild sexually because we couldn't take our sexuality to God. They taught us how to pray when we needed to be healed from everything else. But they didn't teach us how to take our sexuality to God other than to say, God help me, God take it away, other than that. Not, Lord, teach me how to be disciplined. Lord, teach me the how and the when. Like, we didn't have constructive conversations with God about our sexuality, so we made mistakes. And then, in turn, our entire sexual existence became demonized. When in reality, it wasn't that we were active that was the problem. It was that we were hyperactive or coping or whatever the case may be.
Because if our sex is unredeemable, then that means it's unregulated. If I can't redeem it, if I'm going to hell, no matter how I do it, I might as well just do it. Because there's no way to make a wrong thing right.
Correct.
And so I'm just going to keep on. I'm going to hell anyway.
Yes.
If I'm going to go to hell, I might as well bust that on the way.
Absolutely. And then we have those people who respect God enough to say, well, I'm leaving the church. I ain't going to pray like I used to because I'm going to be a slave to this thing because there is no help for this. This is what I mean by the freedom that people think, the same freedom that people hate me for having. They don't really understand the weight of the responsibility that is on my life in being this free.
And you're still trying to work on figuring out how to. Think about it. Think about this. For all the people that criticize you and run you down for this or for that, think about we as Black people. We were enslaved for 400 years.
Yes.
The Civil War was fought. The Civil War was won, and we were told, "Okay, Black people, you're free." What did that mean to us? We didn't know what to do with that.
Sleeping under a tree tonight or staying in the comfort of Massa's shack.
Right. We're trying to figure out how do I live now? And we're still 150 years later, still trying to figure out how do we reconcile ourselves to freedom. And so there are young preachers like yourself, because at the end of the day, you're unique, but you're not unique. The only unique thing about you is your honesty.
Right.
And I appreciate that about you. But you're just trying to figure out what to do with and I'm sure 5 years from now, as you grow, you'll look back at some stuff you're doing right now and go,
already doing so, yes.
But at the end of the day, It's about trying to find that balance, trying to find that sweet spot. Because if you've never been free, and if you were raised to believe that you didn't have a right to be free, how you express that freedom will look different.
Yes.
But there are so many people, just like you, who walked away from church that are having the same struggles about how do I handle this freedom. And they need you. They need your voice. They need your authenticity. And the rest of the church will not get it. But at the end of the day, you're not called to the rest of the church.
That's right.
And since you ain't called to the rest of the church, there's an old phrase here in the South: 2 tears in a bucket.
I'm out. Yeah. I'm out. And as we transition to close, that is where I am.
Yeah.
And I don't waste time speaking to critics, But if I
yeah.
was gonna say something to a critic, I would say something to the effect of, the responsibility that they do not see of being this free is that I don't freak everybody that I want to freak.
Mm-hmm.
I don't freak as much as I want to freak. Trust me. I don't care what you heard. I don't care what you think you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, the love of God and the responsibility that I feel and that I have on my life as a man of God really does constrain me. Before we ever get to Leviticus, before we ever get to Romans, before we ever get to a scripture, my relationship with God says you're going to do your brother, you're going to do the person on the other side of that app, you're going to do the other person that you're rolling around in the bed with. You're going to treat them like a human enough to not give yourself to them when you're not giving a healthy version of yourself to them.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to do better to them by saying, we can't be together tonight or ever, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
There is a responsibility. I'm not just out here, doing everything I want to do. You don't see the times I'm crying mad because the same people that's talking about me is doing the same stuff. And I'm like...
And some of them were talking about you because you wouldn't do it with them.
And that's the only problem, is that I wouldn't do it with them.
You wouldn't do it with them because they ain't got no problem with you doing what you're doing as long as you're going to do it with them.
Right.
But the reality is that if you think I'm a mess, consider that I'm restrained by spirit. You ain't seen it.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm trying to say.
If it had not been for spirit. And so we're all, but my story is not unique as well.
Right.
There are people, all of us struggle with restraining some parts of ourselves so that, because you want to see the most selfish person in the world, look at a baby. Babies are selfish. They are selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all of who we are. We want what we want the way that we want it. But as we grow in spirit, we learn that all things are lawful.
Yes.
But not all things are expedient.
Yes.
So, I'm still trying to figure it out. And you're still trying to figure it out. And thank God for Jesus.
I'm telling you.
I'll be figuring stuff out until Shiloh comes.
Thank you. And all of us will. Yes. We've never been this free before. Yeah. And for some of us, we've had to figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And that's basically where I am. I came to a point in my life where I said, you know what, I've lost everything and I have nothing else to lose. And I see the benefit in that now. Same way, the scriptures talk about how David said it was good that I was afflicted. Yeah. Hindsight, when you look back over some of the bad decisions you make, you realize, you know what, now that I've made that bad decision, I know what not to do, or I know what to do now. Mm-hmm. So now here comes the responsibility. Mm-hmm. Don't just be free. Now you have a responsibility that when you are converted in your consciousness, or when you come to a place of discipline, now you have to disciple your brother. Now you have to strengthen the other person. So I would have wanted my pastor to have lives like this, or to have Bible studies where instead of talking about fasting and abstinence, we actually talked about So what do you do when your dick does get hard? Because just because you don't put it in nothing else don't mean it's not gonna get hard. You know, like what do you do? And I would have enjoyed and benefited greatly from having a pastor or pastoral figure that I could have went and had these kinds of conversations without it turning into something perverted or abusive.
What do you do after you preach your heart out, and now you're on the prayer line laying hands on folks, and penis has a mind of its own? What do you do?
Physiological.
Those are things that I wish we'd been able. I wish somebody would have warned me that you can get hard as awful while laying hands on people. I wish somebody would have told me that.
I'm telling you.
I spent years thinking that I was horrible and wicked, without realizing that it's kind of just a natural physiological thing that just happens. And so we have to figure out how to talk about this stuff so we can be healthier people. And if you can't be holy if you ain't healthy.
Nope.
It just doesn't work.
Don't work.
It just doesn't happen like that.
Nope. Absolutely. So thank you, Apostle. Overseer. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's so funny though, because I don't have a script for these conversations. I'm working on a curriculum that's going to release in January. So shameless plug. After we finish these conversations and get through the holiday season, I look forward to launching an intensive program on sexuality and spirituality. I looked over some of my own videos from this time last year or 2 years ago, and like you said, there are some things that I believed then that I don't believe now, or that I know better concerning now. And I can see a journey, a process
that's all life is growth.
Yeah. I don't know all the answers just yet, and I may not ever know them all, but we're gonna get as close as we can, to a working solution.
My spiritual mother, Bishop Yvette Wonder, has a phrase that I always love. We don't have a map, but we're not lost.
But we're not lost. Yes, we are not. We're not lost. And wherever we find ourselves, there is a lesson that place will teach us if we only raise our consciousness and figure out what is divine, what is God wanting me to learn from this experience, because it wouldn't be happening unless it was here. It was happening for a reason. Right. So when you're kind of super alert like that, you don't just get distracted by big booty and big bulges, because you realize that there's a responsibility. There may not be a spiritual exchange that's going to happen, but there is a responsibility that if I engage in this, I'm going to have to deal with it. Sometimes the deal with ain't worth it. Sometimes it's just not worth it. When you grow to a place of maturity, you're like, you know what? Having to sit on somebody's couch for another 6 months for you is not worth it. It's not in my budget. I don't have the time. And I ain't going to therapy because I done got tangled up in your web. I'm just going to your web look nice. And I'm pretty sure that a part of it would be fun. However, trust me, I'm doing us a favor by leaving you alone. So thank you, Overseer. Final words, final remarks, anything that you feel has been left out of the conversation?
No, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and to share as we all grow. This is a growing process for all of us. This is new for all of us. These conversations that we just had, are new in the church. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the wisdom. So thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Once again, January, we're going to start a intensive. So I'm asking everybody that has been interested or enjoying this conversation to go to citynation.org and prepare to register. Be prepared to register for our Leadership Institute as we take it further. These conversations were unscripted. They're candid. We're just exercising our voice in having them. But the Leadership Intensive that's going to start in January is going to really put some structure to breaking down and understanding how to live as both spiritual and sexual beings, and how to find out what our what our boundaries are, if that makes any sense. If there are any boundaries on our freedom, where are they, and what and how do they apply to me as an individual? This is a very individual type thing. It's hard to put standardizations around, how we engage and how much is too much. Because some of us are Bugattis and some of us are Pintos, and we respect the Bugatti and we respect the Pinto, and then we also respect the Boeing 747s that we don't even see because they on another level, literally. This world is big enough for all of us. The diversity of God is made manifest when we exist honestly. So if God gonna get some glory out of me just living honestly and not knowing all the answers, then do your thing, Lord. Get the glory. I'm not gonna win them all, but somebody will be able to know that Apostle Marquis, Derick Wilson, these people that are having these conversations, we're not just here for views. I'm pretty sure I can volunteer your inbox, like mine is. Now this ain't no, come at me. Don't join my church because you want to be the first G. You won't have no first G. And we ain't going to have one. But if there are some questions or if there are struggles that you don't have a spiritual or a pastoral voice to speak to, we're here. Like we said, we're all trying to figure out some aspect of who we are and where we're going and how we do what we do. So once again, I appreciate you, Overseer Wilson. We'll have to bring you back when we get on the structured side of things, and let's have this conversation again. Maybe have you teach us something.
I'll be happy to come up.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that. But I really appreciate it once again. I hope that hope those of you in the comments will give a virtual round of applause to Overseer Derick B. Wilson in Atlanta, Georgia, for being with us tonight. Once again, thank you. No and the conversation will continue. All right? Cool. All right. Good evening.
Talk to you.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Thank you again for having the conversation with me again about the sexual among us, okay? Download the City Nation app so that you can stay in touch with us as these conversations will continue throughout the rest of this year as we continue to work on reconciling our sexuality with our spirituality. If you have questions, if you need further conversation, if you just want to have a one-on-one with me or any of my guests, if they have social media and if you're respectful with your approach, I'm sure they'll be willing to have a conversation with you. My inbox is always open. I am available to have conversations on helping you answer some of the questions that you may be having or struggling with. Once again, these conversations are just surface level, whatever comes up type conversations. But if you want a very structured conversation, sign up for the Leadership Development Institute, which is going to kick back up again in January with a new cohort. And we're going to have a sexuality and spirituality tract. So there will be several different classes that you can take at your own pace. You can log on when you have time, and when you have focus, you can log on, do the work, engage the content with us, and move from level to level at your own pace. So we're excited about that. Download the app so that you can have access to the Leadership Institute when we begin in January. All right. So I'll see you all on next Wednesday night as the conversation continues. I may have a special guest. We will announce it as soon as they are identified. But if not, we'll be here to take the conversation even deeper. We're going to stop talking. We're not going to stop talking, but we're going to move and transition in our conversation from not just talking about the sexual among us, but now let's start talking about the sexual within us. Let's open Pandora's box and let's have a conversation about not just our sexuality, but let's talk about the sexual act, how we do it, how we engage it. Let's go, as the song say, to the bad side. Okay, we're gonna go and save folk, but let's go nonetheless. All right. Overseer Wilson wants to correct his friend's name was Apostle Anthony Young. He saw our Anthony Williams, Elder Williams, in Miami, and he got confused. So whenever we name drop, we want to make sure that we do it accurately. So thank you, Overseer Wilson, for giving us that clarity. Apostle Anthony Young. All right. So thank you all again. We're good and we're done for tonight. I will see you all on next Wednesday. Don't forget, this coming Sunday at 3 p.m., the City Nations virtual worship experience will commence right here on all social media platforms. So be with us. There is a word from the Lord, and I'm excited about this journey with you. Thank you for watching tonight. We'll see you on next Wednesday. God bless you, and good night.